Hello, everyone. Today we are going to explore a profound concept in Buddhism known as Anicca, or impermanence, which is one of the three marks of existence that the Buddha taught. Anicca refers to the nature of all things in the universe, emphasizing that everything, including ourselves, is in a constant state of flux. Nothing remains the same forever. Everything changes, evolves, and eventually fades away. This may seem simple, but when we truly understand and deeply experience this concept, it can profoundly shift how we view our lives. We often seek stability and certainty in our lives. We want lasting relationships, steady pause, and constant emotions. However, the truth is that all of these things are not permanent. They are subject to change over time. When we fully grasp and accept impermanence, we stop feeling bound by or suffering over things that are beyond our control. In fact, understanding Anicca allows us to live more lightly, no longer anxious about the future or clinging to the past. It might be uncomfortable to hear that everything we hold dear will not last forever. But this is the truth that Buddhism reveals to us, and it is through this understanding of impermanence that we find freedom. When we view life through the lens of Anicca, loss no longer carries the same weight of pain. Losing something becomes less about suffering and more about recognizing that change is a natural part of life. In this video, we will delve into the deep meaning of Anicca and how it relates to our daily lives. We will explore how to apply the concept of impermanence to even the simplest moments in our daily routines. And in doing so, we can live more meaningfully, more happily, and with greater peace. So open your hearts and get ready to embrace change, finding tranquility in the constant flow of life's transitions. Section 1. The nature of Anicca in Buddhism. Anicca, or impermanence, is a central concept in Buddhism, and understanding it is key to unraveling many of the teachings of the Buddha. To understand Anicca fully, we must first realize that it applies to all things in existence: physical objects, our emotions, our thoughts, and even life itself. Nothing is permanent. Everything is in a state of constant flux and change. This is a profound realization because, as human beings, we often desire things to remain the same. We cling to relationships, experiences, and possessions, hoping they will provide us with lasting happiness. Yet the Buddhist teachings remind us that nothing in life is fixed. Everything changes. The Buddhist teachings on impermanence are not meant to bring despair, but rather to free us from suffering. The Buddha stated that suffering arises from our attachment to things that we believe are permanent. We tend to hold on to the idea that the things we value will last forever, but when they change, we feel disappointed, anxious, or even devastated. Anicca teaches us that the key to overcoming this suffering is to embrace the truth of change and let go of the attachment to permanence. To understand Anicca in depth, we can look at the three marks of existence, which are core principles in Buddhism. The first mark is Anicca, impermanence. The second is dukkha, or suffering, and the third is anatta, or non-self. The Buddha explained that everything in the world, from our physical bodies to the things we own, is impermanent. Everything is subject to decay, aging, and change. Nothing remains the same forever. It is this very impermanence that creates the conditions for suffering. When we cling to things or situations as though they are permanent, we suffer when they inevitably change. Through mindfulness and meditation, we can begin to see impermanence in our daily lives. This awareness of change, rather than making us fearful or anxious, can help us develop a sense of peace. We come to realize that nothing lasts forever, not even the suffering or difficulties we face. This understanding can bring us comfort, as it reminds us that the challenges we experience are temporary, and that they too will pass. Section 2. Impermanence in our daily lives. When we reflect on Anicca, it's not just a philosophical concept. It's something that plays out in our everyday lives. From the smallest moments to the larger, more profound experiences, impermanence is at the heart of everything. Take, for example, the relationships we have. Friendships, family ties, and romantic connections are all deeply important to us. We build emotional bonds and we want them to last forever. But over time, people change. Our feelings shift, circumstances alter, and sometimes relationships grow apart. This doesn't mean that those relationships were never meaningful, but rather that they were subject to the natural law of impermanence. Instead of resisting change in relationships, we can choose to embrace it. Knowing that relationships evolve or end over time can help us appreciate the moments we have with others more deeply. we begin to cherish the time we share, knowing that nothing in life is guaranteed to last forever. This awareness can help us approach relationships with greater acceptance and less fear of loss. We can love more freely without clinging to the idea that our relationships should remain exactly the same forever. Another area where Anicca is evident is in the way we experience our emotions. Often we get caught up in negative feelings, anger, sadness, frustration, and believe that these emotions will persist forever. However, when we observe our emotions with mindfulness, we begin to see that they are transient. Just as joy can come and go, so can sadness, anger, and anxiety. Emotions, like everything else, are fleeting. When we understand that emotions are impermanent, we can stop identifying with them so strongly. We can recognize them as temporary visitors that will pass, allowing us to experience life with a greater sense of freedom and peace. This same principle applies to our physical bodies. The aging process, our health, and our physical appearance are all subject to change. As we grow older, our bodies will naturally change. Wrinkles, gray hair, and a slower metabolism are all part of this process. While we may not always welcome these changes, the understanding of Anicca helps us accept them with grace. Instead of fighting the inevitable changes that come with age, we can embrace them as part of the natural cycle of life. We can live more fully in the present moment, appreciating the body we have now, while also accepting that it will not remain the same. When we begin to apply the teachings of Anicca to our daily lives, we find that it can help us live with greater awareness and mindfulness. By accepting that change is inevitable, we can find peace in the midst of life's fluctuations. We can begin to let go of the fear of loss and the desire for permanence, and instead cultivate an appreciation for the beauty in life's fleeting moments. Section 3, Impermanence in Material Life. When we look at the material world around us, the law of impermanence is everywhere. Our possessions, the wealth we accumulate, the things we own, and even the places we live. Everything is subject to change and decay. This realization can be difficult because we often place so much value on material things. We strive for financial stability, the latest gadgets, the best clothes, and a comfortable lifestyle. Yet no matter how hard we try to hold on to these possessions, they are temporary. The things we cherish today can be lost or replaced tomorrow. Think about how much we invest in acquiring possessions. We may buy a car, a house, or even a piece of jewelry, and we often attach a sense of identity or security to these things. But over time, they lose their shine, they age, or their value diminishes. A new car becomes an old car, a piece of technology becomes outdated, and what once seemed essential becomes irrelevant. This constant change can lead to frustration and dissatisfaction if we cling to these things, thinking they will bring us lasting happiness or fulfillment. Buddhism teaches us that the attachment to material wealth is one of the major sources of suffering. The more we accumulate, the more we feel the need to protect and preserve it, and the more afraid we become of losing it. But Anicca reminds us that everything, including our wealth, is transient. Nothing lasts forever. By accepting the impermanence of material possessions, we can develop a healthier relationship with them. We can enjoy them while we have them, but we can also let go of the fear of losing them. When we no longer cling to possessions, we free ourselves from the anxiety that comes with trying to preserve them. We can apply this understanding of impermanence in practical ways. For example, when we acquire something new, instead of focusing on how it will last forever, we can appreciate it for what it is in the moment. We can find joy in using it, but we can also understand that it will eventually fade or be replaced. This mindset helps us live more lightly and with less attachment to the things we own. It encourages us to seek contentment in experiences, relationships, and personal growth, rather than constantly striving for more material possessions. Section 4, Impermanence in the Mind and Emotions. Another area where the concept of Anicca is particularly powerful is in understanding the transient nature of our thoughts and emotions. Just like everything else in the world, our mental and emotional states are in constant flux. We experience a range of emotions every day: happiness, sadness, anger, fear, excitement, and more. Often, we get caught up in these emotions, believing they define who we are. We identify with our feelings, letting them dictate our actions and decisions. But when we examine our emotional life closely, we can see that emotions are impermanent. They come and go, just like clouds in the sky. Take, for example, moments of frustration or anger. In the heat of the moment, we may feel as though the emotion will never pass, but with time, we often find that it fades away. This is the nature of all emotions. They are not permanent. Even happiness and joy, which we may want to hold on to forever, are fleeting. The intensity of any emotion naturally diminishes over time, and the more we observe this, the more we can begin to detach from our feelings. We can stop letting our emotions control us and start observing them with mindfulness and awareness. Buddhism teaches us to be mindful of our thoughts and emotions without becoming attached to them. Through meditation, we learn to observe our feelings without judgment. We acknowledge their presence, but we do not cling to them. By practicing mindfulness, we begin to understand that our emotional states do not define us. They are temporary experiences that arise and pass, just like the waves of the ocean. When we stop identifying with our emotions, we can cultivate a sense of inner peace and balance, unaffected by the ups and downs of life. One of the most profound benefits of understanding Anicca in relation to our thoughts and emotions is the ability to cultivate emotional resilience. When we know that difficult emotions will not last forever, we become less afraid of them. We stop avoiding negative feelings or trying to suppress them. Instead, we face them with equanimity, knowing that they will eventually pass. Similarly, when we experience joy or excitement, we can savor the moment without clinging to it. We can enjoy the present without worrying about how to make it last. By accepting the impermanence of our emotional experiences, we also learn to become more compassionate with ourselves. We no longer judge ourselves harshly for feeling sad or angry. Instead, we allow ourselves to experience our emotions fully, knowing that they are simply part of being human. This acceptance fosters greater self-awareness and emotional maturity, allowing us to live more authentically and peacefully. Section 5. Overcoming attachment through Anicca. Attachment is one of the main causes of suffering in Buddhist philosophy. We tend to cling to things, people, and experiences because we believe that they will provide us with lasting happiness or security. But when we understand that all things are impermanent, it becomes clear that attachment is not only futile but also the source of much pain. We hold on to relationships, possessions, and even emotions as though they are permanent. But in reality, everything is in constant flux. When we lose something we are attached to, whether it's a loved one, a time, or an object, the resulting pain is often overwhelming. This is because we have invested a part of ourselves in these things, and their loss shakes the foundation of our perceived stability. However, Anicca offers a path to freedom from this suffering. The key lies in realizing that nothing is permanent, and therefore nothing should be clung to. By acknowledging the transient nature of all things, we can begin to detach from the belief that our happiness or sense of identity depends on external circumstances. When we stop clinging to the idea that things should remain the same forever, we release ourselves from the cycle of craving and dissatisfaction. Detachment does not mean that we stop caring or stop enjoying life. On the contrary, it means that we learn to appreciate things for what they are in the present moment, without becoming overly attached or fearful of losing them. When we embrace impermanence, we become less afraid of loss. We begin to let go of the need to control every aspect of our lives, and in doing so, we open ourselves to a more peaceful and liberated existence. Anicca also teaches us to find contentment in the present moment. Instead of constantly striving for more, we learn to appreciate what we have now, knowing that it will not last forever. This mindset helps us to live with gratitude and acceptance, recognizing that every moment is precious precisely because it is fleeting. When we accept that all things, including our relationships and possessions, are temporary, we can experience them more fully without the burden of attachment. Section 6. Impermanence in the context of nature and the universe. One of the most powerful reminders of impermanence can be found in the natural world. Nature operates on the principle of Anicca. Everything in nature is in a constant state of change. The seasons shift, plants grow, bloom, and decay, animals are born and die, and even the mountains, rivers, and oceans are constantly changing, though we may not always notice it. The cycle of life and death is an essential part of the natural order, and it is through this cycle that life renews itself. When we observe the world around us, we can see how everything is interconnected. The blooming flower will eventually wilt, the river will eventually change its course, and the forest will undergo a transformation with each passing season. In many ways, nature is a mirror of the human experience. Just as the trees shed their leaves in the fall, we too must let go of things in order to grow. The impermanence of nature reminds us that change is not something to fear, but rather something to embrace. It is a natural part of the ebb and flow of life. By observing the impermanence in nature, we can also come to terms with our own impermanence. Our lives are part of the larger, ever-changing cycle of the universe. We are born, we live, and we eventually pass away. Just like the flowers that bloom and wither, or the rivers that carve their way through the landscape. Accepting our place in this larger cycle can help us find peace with the inevitability of our own mortality. Furthermore, the natural world teaches us how to live in harmony with impermanence. When we witness the cycles of nature, the changing of the seasons, the ebb and flow of tides, we are reminded that everything has its time. There is no need to resist change. Instead, we can align ourselves with it, just as the trees release their leaves in preparation for the coming winter. By accepting the impermanence of life, we can cultivate a deeper sense of harmony with ourselves and the world around us. In Buddhist teachings, nature is often used as a metaphor for the mind. Just as the natural world is ever-changing, so too are our thoughts, emotions, and experiences. In both cases, the key to peace is acceptance. When we understand that change is a constant and inevitable part of life, we can find freedom in letting go and simply being. Nature reminds us that life, in all its forms, is precious precisely because it is fleeting, and by embracing this, we can live with greater gratitude and awareness. Section 7, Anicca and the Path to Liberation, Nirvana. In Buddhism, the understanding of Anicca, or impermanence, is not just a philosophical concept. It is a key to achieving liberation, or nirvana. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from our attachment to the transient world, and that by recognizing the impermanence of all things, we can free ourselves from this suffering. This is why Anicca is so closely tied to the path to nirvana. It is through seeing the true nature of impermanence that we begin to break the cycle of attachment, craving, and suffering that keeps us trapped in samsara, the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. At the heart of the Buddhist path is the practice of mindfulness and insight meditation, which helps us to directly experience the impermanence of all things. Through these practices, we learn to observe how everything arises and passes away, from our thoughts and feelings to the world around us. By seeing this truth clearly, we begin to let go of our attachments. We no longer cling to things or try to hold on to fleeting experiences because we understand that they are not permanent and that our desire to make them last forever only leads to suffering. The realization of impermanence leads to a profound shift in how we live our lives. We begin to see that nothing in this world, whether it be a material possession, a relationship, or even our own body, can provide lasting happiness. Happiness comes not from attachment to the world, but from the freedom that arises when we let go of our desire for permanence. When we stop clinging, we free ourselves from the cycle of suffering and move closer to enlightenment. The Buddhist teachings tell us that by cultivating the wisdom to understand impermanence, we also cultivate the wisdom to understand the other two marks of existence, dukkha, suffering, and anatta, non-self. When we realize that all things are impermanent, we also understand that nothing is truly self-existent. Our sense of a permanent, unchanging self is an illusion. The insight into impermanence leads to the realization that everything, including the self, is in a constant state of flux. This realization helps us break free from the illusion of a fixed identity and allows us to experience the freedom of non-attachment. Nirvana in this context is the cessation of suffering and the end of the cycle of rebirth. It is the state of peace that arises when we fully understand and accept the impermanence of all things. It is not a place or a destination, but a state of being, a state of liberation from the constant craving and clinging that keeps us bound to the cycle of suffering. By embracing Anicca, we come closer to experiencing this state of freedom and peace. Conclusion: embracing impermanence for a fulfilling life. As we come to the end of our exploration of Anicca, the concept of impermanence in Buddhism, it's clear that this teaching is not just an abstract idea, but a powerful tool for transforming our lives. By recognizing the impermanent nature of all things, we free ourselves from the bonds of attachment and the suffering that comes with it. We realize that nothing in life, whether it be our emotions, relationships, possessions, or even our very bodies, will remain the same forever. This is not something to fear, but something to embrace. Understanding Anicca allows us to live with greater freedom. When we stop clinging to the idea of permanence, we begin to experience life more fully. We appreciate each moment for what it is, knowing that it won't last forever. This awareness gives us the ability to let go of the need for control and security, and instead we live with greater ease, accepting the natural flow of life. By incorporating the teaching of impermanence into our daily lives, we shift our perspective on everything. We approach our relationships with less fear of loss, knowing that change is inevitable. We accept the changing nature of our bodies and health, living with more grace and gratitude for the present. We engage in our work and passions without becoming attached to specific outcomes. And we cultivate emotional resilience by recognizing that all feelings, whether good or bad, are temporary. The realization of impermanence also deepens our connection to the world around us. Just as nature reflects the cycle of birth, growth, decay, and renewal, so too does our existence. Everything is interconnected in this grand dance of change. And by understanding this, we align ourselves more harmoniously with the natural world. We can live in peace, knowing that the ebb and flow of life is a beautiful, natural process. Ultimately, embracing Anicca leads to a life of peace, acceptance, and liberation. By recognizing the transient nature of all things, we let go of our attachments and cultivate a deeper sense of inner freedom. We stop chasing after fleeting moments of happiness and instead learn to find joy in the impermanent nature of life itself. This is the true essence of the Buddhist teachings, a life lived with mindfulness, understanding, and acceptance of change. So as we move forward in our own lives, let us remember the wisdom of Anicca. Let us live each day with an open heart, appreciating the preciousness of each moment and accepting the inevitable changes that come with it. By doing so, we will find true peace and contentment, living fully in the present while letting go of the fear of the future and the attachment to the past.